Good evening, Toastmasters and guests. So I think there are many similarities between companies and people. Just like people, companies are always growing, they're evolving, they're facing challenges, and they're improving. So I think there are many lessons that companies can give us that we can apply to our own lives. So when I was researching this topic, communication, I was looking at different companies, trying to see if there was anything out there that I could find and use. And one company that I found that was really unique was Bridgewater. So for those who don't know, Bridgewater is the biggest hedge fund in the world, and it's run by a man called Ray Dalio. He started Bridgewater in 1985, and he's been leading that company ever since. One thing that makes Bridgewater really unique is its style of making decisions and the way that it operates, its culture. And the way that it makes decisions is based on principles. So Ray released his book a few years ago now called Principles, in which he outlines principles for his life and his work. So principles that he uses to make decisions in his personal life and principles that his company uses to make decisions in the workplace. These principles that he uses create this culture. Some of the key ones that I found really useful and really relevant to this topic were that of openness and transparency. So some things that the culture in Bridgewater brings out is they have meetings, they obviously have meetings, but these meetings are recorded and they're available for everyone inside the company. So I can go and watch any other meeting that happens. It's very open and transparent. Any promotion, any hire that happens, I can see, if I'm in the company, I can see the criteria by which they hired someone. It's all open, it's all very easy for me to see. So what this does is creates such an open and transparent place that Ray calls this radical transparency. And what he says that this brings out is what's called, he calls it an idea meritocracy. Okay, so it's a little bit of a word jumble, but what it means is that basically there's like this kind of hierarchy of ideas, and as part of the company, we want the best ideas to rise to the top. We want the best ideas, the best decisions to be made, not the bad ones. If someone's got an idea, we want to hear that, and we want to hear that expressed. So the way this transparency kind of works is that any complaint or anything like that maybe in some companies would kind of be hidden. There's kind of some back chat going on. The purpose of this radical transparency is so that these ideas are not just hidden in the corner, they're brought out into the open and they can be discussed. So I think that's really, comes across, well, for me at least, is a good metaphor for communication. Is, how can we be more open and transparent in our relationships so that there's no back chat going on. Everything's very clear. Everyone knows what I'm about, so that we can get along and move forward together. Another example that I found of this, transparency taking place, I read in a book called Show Your Work by Austin Kleon. And what he talks about is this example of the creator. So, let's say I'm a creator, I'm a podcaster, and I create podcasts. He says, well, just, creating your podcast is one thing, but we can also show and create how we make the podcast. That's also something that's interesting to my audience. And one of the examples that he gives is this barbecue joint in America. And it's kind of like KFC here would be a good analogy. They have this secret sauce, this secret recipe. It's very unique. No one really knows what it is. And what this company did was, instead of keeping that secret, instead of keeping their competitive advantage, they shared their secret. And what they did was they created workshops teaching people how to use their special recipe, how to make their special dish. And instead of maybe you're thinking, oh, they're giving away their secrets, like that's got to be bad for them. Well, instead of that happening, they've given away their competitive advantage. It's actually boosted their company, and it ended up becoming much more successful. And I think this is another example of this communication that can happen, where telling people, being honest, transparent, can actually can help you connect better and can help you rise up together, rather than this me versus you kind of mentality. So I thought it'd be good to now look at ways in which there's maybe unradical transparency, ways in which there's kind of things that aren't being shared and the negative impacts that they can have. So an example, if we go back to the Ray Dalio kind of culture, is, let's say a promotion happens at work. You know, sometimes we can be like, okay, why did this person get promoted over this other person? The culture is kind of like, you can have this back chat that's going on. Why did they get promoted? You know, I don't really like my manager anymore. They did something I don't like, blah, blah, blah. And this creates, you know, can create resentment and things like that. Same in your relationships, let's say with your partner. If they do something that you don't like, if you aren't transparent about that and tell them, then what can start to happen is similar thing. You know, untrustworthiness, maybe a bit of resentment starts to creep in. So I think it's very important in your communication to speak about these things. So I guess to summarize and to bring it back to this idea of communication is something that for myself that I want to keep doing in my communication is to share more with others, be more upfront about, you know, the things that I'm doing, and to be more transparent with what I'm doing. One example that I've been successful in doing this, and that I'll continue to do, is actually to do with Toastmasters. So I started Toastmasters back home in Adelaide this time last year, and for probably 6 months, no one knew that I was going. So, you know, people would ask me, oh, like, what are you doing this week, James? Oh, not much. No, I'm, you know, just chilling. You know, I didn't want to share. Like, I thought, you know, Toastmasters is this weird hippie thing. I don't want my friends to think I'm weird, you know. But what I've found is the more that I share this with people, and the more that I'm open about the things that I do and the things that I am interested in, the more support that I receive from people, the more interested they are in my life. And I think that's just one example, but I think this whole idea of being transparent and, you know, being like behind things that you're into, not being ashamed of those things, is something that's really, really valuable and something that I will continue to do in my communication style.